Welcome to a Systemic Solutions tutorial video. In this video, we will be setting up the main table for a VEX Robotics competition event. This is by far the hardest part about setting up a VRC event. Before even beginning to set up the area, you have to understand the layout of a competition. Generally, 2 fields will run the matches. Each field will have a set of field control towers, a field monitor, and a camera that feeds live video to the main table. Back behind the fields is the main table, the main hub of running the event. The main bundle runs from the main table until it reaches the middle of the field walls. From there, it splits in half, one set of wires for each field. The wires run along the field walls to lessen the chance that they are tripped upon. Let's begin with the physical setup on the field side of things. First, we have to set up the towers, the field monitor, and the field cameras. The towers should have been set up from field setup. The field monitor attaches with the bracket and 1 screw and wing nut. The camera sits upon a tripod and is placed somewhere facing the fields on the audience side. Now for the physical setup of the table. 2 tables will be placed next to each other behind the fields. This is where all the cables will eventually run. The 2 tables need the following laid out upon them. All the way on the left is the printer, followed by 4 laptops. In the middle of the table should sit the 16-port Ethernet switch. 2 field controllers should sit nearby. On the right side will sit the tablet, microphone receiver, and the AV mixer. Finally, power strips will sit underneath the table and connect to an outlet. Now that we have everything set up, we start the process of wiring everything. Let's once again begin with the field side of wiring. Like before, the main bundle splits in half in the middle of the 2 fields and then runs along the field walls. The field monitor will need a power cable and an HDMI cable. The camera is going to need a power cable and an HDMI cable run to it. The adapters are already secured onto the tripod. All you have to do is plug in the ends to the camera and the other end into the main bundle cables. Finally, the driver control towers get the main bundle Ethernet cables run to them. In addition, 2 more Ethernet cables will need to be plugged in to each of the driver control towers for the player's controllers. On both of these, we want to make sure that the wiring is done in such a way that it takes care of the equipment. So for the field monitor, make sure you zip tie the HDMI cable so that it won't tug on the connection in the monitor. For the Ethernet cables, make sure you run the cables behind the field control towers. This reduces the chance that they will get tugged and tripped upon. The Ethernet cord should be run back and forth through the holes in the tower before being plugged in, and then zip tied so that they once again do not get pulled at the connection. This is all to keep the equipment lasting longer. Ensure that the cables all go to the proper field. To do this, look at the labels marked on the cables. For example, you want to make sure that the driver control towers have the proper color and number Ethernet cables. Field 1 should have both 1 cables, and the red and blue cable should go to its respective side. Now we have to wire up the main table itself. Each item will have its own cables that need to be run to it. Let's run down each item and what it will need. Starting from the left, the printer will be used to print various documents throughout the tournament. It will need a power cable and a USB cable that will be connected to Computer 1. Computer 1 is the server for the entire operation. As such, after it is set up, try not to touch it while in use. It will have the USB from the printer, a charger that's connected to the power strip, a USB connection from the match controllers, and an Ethernet cable connected to the switch. The field controllers control the field, letting drivers drive and running matches. It has USBs that run to Computer 1. It also has the 4 Ethernet cables from the 4 driver towers from both fields. Computer 2 is the computer that queues matches and is an extended field timer and audience display for one of the fields. It will be connected to power, have an HDMI connection from the field monitor from one of the 2 fields, and have an Ethernet cable running to the switch. The switch creates the network for all of the computers. It will have all the Ethernet cables for all of the computers the competition is running. In this case, we have 4 Ethernet cables from the 4 computers on the main table, and then an Ethernet cable from the pit area computer and the trophy table computer. You may have more Ethernet cables for more computers. Computer 3 is almost the same as Computer 2. It is an extended field timer and audience display for the other field, but is the computer you use for scoring. It has the same cables as Computer 2, power, HDMI from field monitor, and Ethernet. Computer 4 is the computer used for the main display and audio. It is hooked to power, has an HDMI cable that runs directly to the AV mixer, and the Ethernet cable to the switch to connect to the network. Next, we have the microphone receiver, which allows the microphones to work. All it needs is power and audio input cables that run to the AV mixer. The tablet is the source of some audio. All it has is power and a smaller audio cable to the AV mixer. The AV mixer allows all of these visual and audio components to come together. It'll be powered and have a bunch of HDMI cables, one from the projector, one from each of the field cameras, and one from computer 4. It'll have aux cables from the big speaker set up somewhere else. It has audio input cables from the microphone receiver and a smaller audio cable from the tablet. The speakers, which aren't part of the physical main table, have a separate tutorial video. However, they should have a power cable and the aux cables from the mixer. Finally, the projector also has a separate setup video, but it is important to note that it gets an HDMI cable from the mixer and power cables. With all of the components set up and wired, we now move on to the digital setup. This is setting up Tournament Manager to run your competition. After your competition is set up, you should see the Tournament Manager window, the Match Timer window, and the Setup Field Controllers window. With the Setup Field Controllers window, we're going to test the field controllers. This is really simple. All you have to do is look at the driver control towers and the colored lights. While just idle, they should blink orange. First, press the Test Driver button. The driver control tower should change to green lights. Once you've ensured green lights, turn the test driver off. Then, click Test Auto. Once again, the driver control tower should change from orange to green. This means your field controllers are ready to go. Next comes the field timer and audience display. First, you'll want to bring up your field timer display and audience display full screen windows. You'll be prompted to connect to the tournament server. Just type in your password and hit continue. Now, choose the field in which you are setting up the display and hit continue. For the field timer display, take the larger window that pops up and drag it over to your field monitor. Your displays have to be set to extended in order for this to work. Do not full screen this display, just drag it over. Do the same with the password and field selection for the audience display. Now once again, take the larger of the two windows. However, this time you'll want to go to View and select Full Screen on Monitor 2. Take this time to test your sound. Make sure it plays on the field monitor. The main table is nearly finished. However, we now have to set up the video and audio for the AV mixer. Start off with the video. Begin on computer 4. You'll want to search for Audience Display Overlay, not full screen. Like before, type in the password and choose your field. Now you'll see your two windows. Choose the large one and select Full Screen on Monitor 2, just like the other audience display. Now the overlay will be sent to the AV mixer. Now we move over to the mixer. With the overlay full screen on Monitor 2, we can now set it as the key. Simply select it by tapping on the overlay and make sure the key is activated. This way, your overlay will be broadcasted over your feed. It can be turned on and off by pushing the key button. What's going to happen is the green screen will be replaced by your two other feeds. All the green goes away and the overlay sits cleanly over your shot. Once again, it can be turned on and off if you don't want it up there. To switch displays, simply tap on the display you want. The key should remain there as long as the key is activated. The last setup is AV Mixer Audio.
Alright, this is a video on how to set up your audio for your microphones. So first thing you want to do is make sure your microphone cables are plugged into 1 and 2, and they will run to your microphone, and they will go to port A and B. Once that's hooked up, make sure that your XLR cables, these two here, those are going to run to your speakers, and all the audio from your mics will go into these to your speakers. This is how you control the volume for mic 1, mic 2, and then here is your overall main volume. When I tap on this, you can see here a little green light comes up that shows the level of your volume. Make sure that's working. Last thing you got to check, you have your tablet. Swipe that to unlock and play that. See the music's playing because you have your aux cord here. It's going to plug into 7 and 8 right here in the back. And then 7 and 8 is how you control your music volume. And that's all you got to do.
Finally, for looks, you can use a table skirt just like other display tables. For more helpful video tutorials just like this one, be sure to look for Systemic Solutions.